We are talking to John Sarrouf. John is a facilitator, trainer, consultant, and coach with the company Essential Partners. His LinkedIn profile says that he has collaborated with all kinds of organizations to help them build trust, understanding, and connection across differences of values, beliefs, and identities. Hi, John.
Hi, how are you, Heather?
I'm good. How are you?
Great, thanks.
So we want to start off with a tough question. There's so much division around right now, and it's hard for people to figure out how to suddenly maneuver around either close friends or colleagues or people, who might cut your hair
Right.
with all this divide. So let's start with the fact problem. How do you build a society, or even how do you have a conversation with someone when you completely disagree on what the facts are?
Right. It's a great question. It's one of the ones that feels very present right now because in some ways we are, as a society, seeking out different sets of facts in order to support the beliefs we have. And I think that's the key to it. The facts that we look for tend to be facts that confirm our worldview. And so though it is important to have a similar framework or facts from which to start and to have certain pieces of data that would help us understand the world and then talk about it, it's not the panacea. It's not the thing that's going to save us. We think that it is. Well, if we all just had the same facts in front of us, would believe the same things, we could agree on things. The truth is that even people who are world-class economists who are presumably working from the same sets of data, look at that data differently, and they see a different story from that data and then come to different conclusions about all kinds of things. What we should do about climate change, what we should do about the minimum wage, what we should do about the next aid package for where we are. It's really a confirmation of our own beliefs and our belief system. So one of the things that I think is important is for us to ask the question of each other, why is that important to you? So you're actually going below the surface of the fact itself. Why is that important to you? And understand what it is that the person believes, what they're afraid of, what they're hopeful for, so that you can then have a conversation about those hopes, those fears, and that worldview. And I'll just say one more thing. There are times when we want to work from the same set of facts, and we have different, understandings about our belief in authority and who to trust. So a lot of the work about the facts that we seek and who we listen to, it's a lot about who we trust in the world. And I might watch one channel because I trust the people who are delivering the news from there or the experts that they interview. You watch a different channel because you trust them. So then we can have a question about why I trust those people and why you trust your people. And if we need to have a conversation where we're starting from the same set of facts, then let's actually do that together. Let's you and I, if we're going to have to decide about what we're going to do, let's say for the reopening of school this fall, and we need to be working from the same set of facts. Let's work together as our first step to actually find facts that we can both trust and agree upon. So let that be the work that we do before we even get into an argument about what the conclusion of our discussion is. Let's build trust together by working towards developing a trust around who we're reading, what data we're looking at, and then how we want to interpret it.
Well, according to that, from my worldview, it could actually be dangerous because my worldview is I'm worried about the pandemic.
Right.
But I have met people who believe the pandemic is a hoax.
Yeah.
So how do you talk about reopening, schools when that's in conflict?
Right. I think that it's important to ask somebody the why that's underneath that belief.
Right.
So why does somebody think that this is a hoax? It's often the case that their experience isn't confirming the data that they're hearing. So there's a story in the world, and I'm looking at my world here, and I'm not seeing it played out. And so then you can discuss, well, that's interesting because I'm seeing it differently. So you share a different perspective, right? And so part of what you're going to be doing in a conversation to start that is to say, that's really interesting. So I hear you saying, right? Acknowledge what you hear somebody else saying. Acknowledge that they're not all the things that we say about one another, right? All the ways in which we dehumanize or degrade or marginalize each other's opinions. If we can get that off the table to begin with, we're not calling each other crazy. We're not calling each other dangerous. We're not saying that's interesting. It sounds to me like for you, it's really important to get your kids back into school. First of all, can you tell me why that's so important to you, right? Because we have different situations in our homes, and it could be that there are different risk factors, and there are different situations that one child might really need the kind of support that goes on at school. And that's just a fundamental value. So tell me more about why that's important to you, right? So first of all, you're listening to them, you're acknowledging that they have concerns and all of that. Then you might share with them a different perspective. And you can say that, it's interesting. I have a really different perspective about this. I have grandparents that live with us in our house. I work with certain populations that are at risk. For me, health is incredibly important at this moment. And as I'm looking at the data, this is what I'm reading. Tell me what you're reading as you look at this data. What do you see in this? Right? And in some ways, you're beginning the conversation in a really different place than if we begin to say, well, you're dangerous. How can you think that? You're really getting to the place of why is this important to you, and how are you understanding what you're seeing? And let me share what I'm seeing. And in some ways, that's how we learn about the world. I can only see what I can see. But boy, Heather, I like you. I trust you. You seem like a really interesting and thought out person, and you're telling me something different. Now I have to challenge myself. And I can only do that work. I can only do the work of challenging my own beliefs if I have enough trust in you as a person to actually quiet my defenses and listen. And so you're being sort of, I would say, humanizing me by listening to me, by building relationship with me, allows me to say, okay, I'm not being attacked. I can open up here. I can think about this differently. And I see, Heather, you're scared about the health of your family. And you can see I'm scared about the education and the mental health of my children. And now we can begin a different kind of conversation about how to look towards what we need to understand about the world to make a safe decision for both of us.
John, do you find in your work that there is a hunger between both parties for civil discourse? And are there differences smaller than those sides actually believe?
So hungry for it. And it's really a hunger for belonging. It's really a hunger for people to be known, for me to be known by my neighbors, not as a boogeyman, not as a stereotype, not as a caricature that gets made fun of in the newspaper, but known for who I am. And I want to know you. I'll give you a great example. I did some conversations around guns and guns in community. And I've done a lot of these around the country and written guides about how to have conversations about guns. And here's one of these places where there's actually a lot more overlap than the press would have you imagine, or our public discourse would have you imagine. It's largely about trust, and it's largely about understanding. And so I talked to a group of gun rights advocates. These are people who own guns, love guns, believe in the right to bear them. And at the beginning of the conversation, I was just there to listen to them, just there to understand. And at the beginning of the conversation, they were saying, you can't have a conversation like this with the other side. They don't get it. They just want to take away your guns. They demonize us, all of these things. I sat and I asked questions of them. What do you want to be understood for? What would you like to understand about the other side? Where do you think you both have overlapping values? I literally just sat for an hour and a half and asked questions and listened. And at the end, one of the women who was most vocal about how this is not possible with the other side said to me, could we do this with people who are gun control advocates? And I said, yeah, we could, but why would you want to? And she said, you know, I'm so tired of walking around hiding who I am, feeling like I don't belong in this community, feeling misunderstood, and feeling like I misunderstand the people that I'm with. I don't want to live in that kind of community again. So the desire for civil discourse is a desire for community. It's a desire for belonging. It's a desire to be understood and to not be a stereotype, to be the complex person that I am with lots of different beliefs and lots of overlapping beliefs with the ones that you have. And that's a society that we want to live in. That's a society we could live in if we spent more time in these relationships.
Very helpful. Well, can we talk to you again? Because I think these issues aren't really going to be resolved very quickly. So it would be great to have more conversations.
I would love to. It's really important what you're doing. Thank you, especially in this season where there's so many things to talk about. I really appreciate you making space for it.
Oh, we do too. We look forward to talking to you again. Thank you,
Thanks,
John.
John.
Thank you.